Hello. Welcome to the first Fetter and the first lesson in the first Fetter. We're starting up an entire process. My idea when I'm making this video is to create videos for every single Fetter. My idea is also that while right now when I'm sitting and making all the material and writing down all the things that I would like to say in all the Fetters, in all the Fetter videos. My idea is also that it's gonna be a project that is expanding over years. So it's not only gonna be this year that is gonna happening, and also because what you're gonna realize is that the entire Fetter process is it's a very circular movement. It's what you in feminology call hermeneutical cycles, that you take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and 2 steps forwards and 1 step back. And it's also why I'm going to experience that when we talk about something now in the first Fetter, when you get to the 5th Fetter or the 8th Fetter or the 9th Fetter, you're going to realize, oh my goodness, yeah, way back when I started at the first lesson, I actually had some insight about this Fetter that is much further along than where I actually was. When you look about how the Fetters is done, that you have boxes, that first you do the first Fetter, and then you do the second Fetter, and then you do the third Fetter. And it's not how I work. I just work with it differently. And there's no right way to work with the Fetters. It's all about realizing that reality is one thing and your thoughts are adding a lot of things to the reality. And then we react to the thoughts and no longer respond to reality. So my idea with the teaching, with the lesson today, is that I'm going to try to do it like this. As I said, this is a project that is going to span over years. I'm going to keep adding whenever I have a realization, oh yeah, I would like to talk about that. Or if questions come up and it gives, a different angle that I would like to explain differently, then I'm going to make a video and put it in the sequence of the relevant Fetter, and then in the sequence of how many lessons are in that Fetter. It's the first time that I'm doing it like this. I'm usually teaching the Fetter model and teaching about the Fetters in groups. I have done single guidings as well, but for the majority of my career, I've been teaching in groups. I like how the dynamic is in a group, that whatever one person is coming up with, other people can recognize. They might not have the same issue as the person is sharing, but they recognize the foundation or the underlying motivation for that experience. And I really like that. And also there's something about a group dynamic that when you come to the 4th and the 5th Fetter, which is about desire, all the things you want, and ill will, all the things you don't want, that frustration that you experience in that period, we tend to project and direct away from ourselves and into another person. And when you have a group, then it becomes a great opportunity, that mob reaction that can happen when somebody gets angry at me and everybody else chimes in. It's a great opportunity to discover the underlying drive that we have with aversion. Because it's such a strong drive that is really taking over, and when we get to that part, I have in my plan that I have right now, which obviously might change 1,000 times until we get to there, but my plan right now is to take 2 months where we're working with desire and aversion with the 4th and the 5th, because it's so deep. And when we get to that point, there's a group that I would like for you to become a member of and start to participate in the video meetings, in the meetings that we have in the group, because you need somebody with you when you get to that point. But the way that I'm doing this teaching now, it's just the way I'm doing this teaching now. It might not be how I want to do all the other teachings, or when we get further along, I might want to do it in a different way. And then I'm just changing it and doing it in a different way. This is what feels right for me right now. When I am going from how I usually do it and then to basically sitting and talking to myself right now. But knowing that you are there, you are sitting there. So I need to, because you can't ask me the questions while I'm teaching, I need to assume what you're asking me. And obviously, if you have any questions, then go to the membership part of my YouTube channel, become a member, ask me the questions, and then I'm gonna either write you a reply or I'm gonna make a video. I think that I might make some Q&A compilations videos that I'm gonna put into the different fetters, into the different boxes where the teachings are. So there will be like compilations of Q&A, because which questions I imagine that you have right now might not be the questions that you actually have. We start with the first fetter, and here you have an overview of all the different fetters that we have. As you see, every single fetter that I have written here, the identifying is the first, the doubt is the second, the harmful routines is the third. In my experience, all three is about non-self. All three is about identifying. It's just different twists on the kaleidoscope that makes you either have a feeling of identifying, of doubt, which is obviously also identifying, or with the harmful routines, which is also about identifying. So all of them is about the same topic. And it's also why if you have a guide from LU, you will see that they often say that the first three fetters fall at the same time. It's absolutely true, because all three is about the same thing. But I see the importance in the Fetter model to have doubt as a topic by itself. When we talk about low self-worth, low self-esteem, that comes into doubt. In the original Buddhist teaching, then doubt was about the teaching, and that also comes in when we talk about the fetters. It's doubt whether this is the right thing for you to do, or whether there's something else for you to do. And the harmful routines, it's obviously also about identifying, because you do different things because you have an expectation about something happening. You eat healthy because you have an expectation of what is going to happen. So there's an identification with what you do, an identification with what you're supposed to do, and that then creates routines that are very harmful for you. And then you're going to come to the fourth and the fifth and realize that the identification that you had with what you wanted to do, what you wanted to happen, was actually about a desire. You wanted something to be in a certain way. And when we come to the fourth and the fifth is the same thing. The desire, you want something, that's exactly the same as what you don't want. I'm not going to say so much about the rest of the fetters right now, because I would like for us to focus on the first thing, which is about having the pure talk about identification. But as you see, all of them, I have a versus. So with doubt, there's a versus calm, and that is what I call antidotes. In Buddhism, we talk a lot about antidotes, that there are different things that you can do to get you in the direction of where you want your mind to be instead of where it actually is right now. And I think there's been a lot of misunderstanding about antidotes. It's at least what I have heard when I talk about antidotes. People go like, oh, it's not meant as a spiritual bypassing. It's not meant as you have doubt about something, and then you go, well, there's nobody to doubt, so there's no doubt happening, so I'm actually not doubting. That's gaslighting. That's spiritual bypassing, and spiritual bypassing is it's so normal that I really would like to take a minute talking about that. And what you're using the antidote for is to have kind of like a beacon in the direction that you're going. So when you feel doubt, if you doubt yourself, if you are going into an interview for a new job, and you really would like the job, and you're doubting that you can do this job, then obviously the really wanting the job is in the fourth fetter, desire. You want something other than what you actually have right now. But if you haven't worked with the fourth and the fifth right now, then a way to work with the doubt is to have the beacon of calm in front of you. So you have the doubt, you feel that you're not enough, you identify with a person that's not enough, you identify with someone that should be better. I should be better. I should know more. Who am I even to apply for this job? And there might be other people that are so much better at this job than I am. All that. The way you use the antidote is to have the beacon of calm. Okay, calm down, calm down, calm down. A lot of identifying is happening right now, sweetheart. So, look at what really is. Look at what really is. What is right now? How does your feet feel right now? What is alive in you right now? How do you feel right now? Yeah, I'm so nervous. I'm so down. Okay, that's your mind. That's the thought. Get back to how you're actually feeling. I have a little bit of nausea. I have clammy hands. I have big sweat under my arms. I really don't feel comfortable. Okay. Can you be in a body where you have clammy hands, where you are nauseated, where you sweat a lot? Can you be in a body where that is happening? Can you have calm while that is happening? So there's the bodily sensation where you feel something is happening. Can you be with that? Can you have an acceptance, an unconditional acceptance of what is happening in your body right now without any thoughts of it being different, any expectations to it being differently? Can you just be with what is happening in your body right now? And that's how you use the antidote of calm when you're in doubt. A lot of the work that I'm doing, a lot of ways that I'm working with the fetters, it's always bringing it back to the body, always bringing it back to the physical sensation and to the body sensation of it. And the reason why I do that is that our senses is the only way that you can get back to reality. Your senses always have a very clear notion of what reality is. You have your thoughts, but your thoughts are based on expectations and assumptions, judgment and beliefs and conclusion and reckoning and guessing and hunches and speculations. That's not reality. That's fantasy. It's happening in your mind, There's no reality present. Reality is what can you feel sensorically in your body right now. What do you feel? And not adding anything to it. It's just, I feel nausea. Okay, you're nauseated. That's it. The feeling that I don't want to be nauseated, or it's not nice to be nauseated, that's thoughts. No, being nauseated is just a physical sensation. Just like you can smell a strawberry, or you can look at a beautiful view, or you can feel, something fluffy or something hard. You can hear music, or you can hear a fork on a plate. That is the sensory experience. That is reality. That is what really happens. Whether it's nice or not nice, that is the next level. And whether you prefer it to be nice or not nice, that is the next level. All those things I call post-its. So you have a pure sensation. Let's say that you're going into an interview and you feel nauseated. You are going to the interview, the body reacts. You have the physical sensation of nauseated and sweat and racing thoughts and all of that. The pure experience of what is happening, the only thing that is reality is that you experience a body that has clammy hands, is sweating a lot, and is nauseated. That's it. Why you feel like you do, that's the first post-it. It's because I'm nervous. That's the first post-it. What the body then does, or what the mind does, is that it adds to that post-it. But it does no longer add to the sensation that you have. It adds to the post-it. So let's say that you're going to the interview and you have the bodily sensation of nauseated. And then the first post-it says, it's because I'm nervous. The next post-it is reacting to you being nervous. It's because I don't believe that I'm good enough. That's the next post-it. The next post-it is, there are probably other people being interviewed for this job that are so much better than me. That's the third post-it. Do you see that you're no longer reacting to the physical sensation, you're reacting to the post-its? And that is what we're going to talk about today. Finding out what is the reactions to the initial experience. But to do that, we need to start at the beginning. And the first question that I would like to ask you is to feel into reality right now. Whenever I say feel into reality, then I mean, you can put a hand on your heart, a hand on your heart, or you can just close your eyes and sit and breathe and just be present right now. Another good exercise that you can do is to feel your feet. And then you feel your socks. And then you feel the separation between the foot and the sock. Can you sense that separation between the foot and the sock? Can you feel into where's the foot and where's the sock? After a while, you will start to feel that you cannot actually feel the difference between the foot and the sock, and you would have to really look into if you really have a foot. You know intellectually that you have a foot, but you can't really locate the foot. Okay, now you're here. Now you're present right here. Now you're in reality. Whatever you feel or you hear or you smell or you taste, or that is reality where you're right now. And when you're here right now, I would like you to ask the question, who am I? So feel into reality. What is happening? When you ask yourself the question, who am I? What is happening? Do you get a thought about who you are? Notice what happens. Do you feel that you're no longer in your body? You have left your body. You're in the post-its. You have a thought about who you are, and then that was the first post-it. Then you have another thought about the first post-it, and you might already now, at this point, be on the 17th post-it. That are thoughts about who you are. So are you the thoughts? The thoughts that you are having about who you are. Is that who you are? The thoughts. So if you're not thinking the thought, where are you then if you're the thoughts? Is the thoughts defining you? So if you think I'm a crocodile, then you're a crocodile. Is the thoughts real? I'm a billionaire. Are you? And can you even control the thoughts? The thought you're getting right now, did you will it into being? And can you even hold a thought? If you decide that you want to think about something, can you decide how long you want to hold that thought? Can you decide what the next thought is going to be? Or are thoughts just happening? So are you in control of your thoughts at all? Is there any of the thoughts that you can control? I would like to direct your attention to what you're hearing. Any of the sounds in the background that you hear, can you control which ones you want to hear? Or does a sound happen and you hear it? And if you open your eyes and you look, can you control what you want to look at? You might want to look at one thing now very intensely. Can you control only looking at that? Or does your mind register what is behind it as well? And the same if you close your eyes, can you control what you want to see? So are you sure that you're in control of your thoughts and of your senses? So if you're not in control of any of your senses, and you have this feeling of being in control of your senses, where is that I? Where's that deluded I placed that thinks that you're in control? Which you just found out you're not in control of anything. Where's that I? Since you're not your thoughts, are you your body? Is the I located in your body? So when you're dreaming at night, is the I then located in the body that is lying in the bed dreaming, or is the I located in the dreamer? And is there any difference between the dreamer and the dream? Is the dreamer part of the dream? And is the body lying in bed dreaming part of the dreamer and the dream? Where's the I in that? So there's someone lying and dreaming deep asleep. Is that someone different than the one that is awake? And where's the I in that? You probably realized by now that you have a lot of post-its, a lot of thoughts coming all the time. There's no pure experience in anything. There's thoughts all the time. Working with the first Fetter is about you realizing that what you identify with is not actually there. There's no thing to identify with. There's no one to identify with. It's a trick of the mind. And that trick of the mind we call ego. Jung called it ego. I also like to call it ego because it makes it so, it's so loaded calling it ego. It's very negatively loaded. So a lot of people, they instantly get the physical recoil from saying, I'm really ego right now. You get the physical recoil. You don't want to be that, which is a lot of identifying, which is absolutely amazing because then you realize what is really going on. Another word we can call it is selfing. And selfing it's a great way to see what is actually happening in the first Fetter. Because you have the eyes are seeing, right? The ears are hearing. The nose is smelling. The mouth is tasting. The sensory experiences is feeling. And the mind, the thought, is selfing. So the selfing is happening whenever you take an ego, a self, and putting it right in the middle of what is happening. You put yourself in the center of attention and you act as if you are the center of attention. You act as if you are the important one. And that's where the word ego is really great to use, because you put yourself in a position where you believe someone to exist as you, as the ego, me, myself, and I. And your entire world is shaped around that ego. And the ego, a very big part of the ego is the I am not a should be mentality. It's that you believe that whatever is right now is not okay. What I have right now, I don't want. I want something else. There's something better. I'm meant for something bigger. That's the ego. Obviously, that's a lie. It's selfing. It's selfing. You put yourself in a position and then you assume a lot of things around you to be real. So there's a lot of expectations of what is going to happen that is going to be better. That's the ego doing that. I am not a should be. I expect something better to happen, something better to be than what is right now. There's a lot of assumptions happening when you're selfing. You're putting yourself in the middle. The ego is right here, seeing itself and interacting with other people, and assume something about other people, that parents should love their children, a boss should have integrity, refugees should not have mobile phones. All the things that you assume is putting the ego, the selfing, right in the middle, and you know what's right. Everybody are Muppets. Everybody don't know anything, but fortunately for them, you do, and you can tell them all about it. That is selfing. You put yourself in a position where you honestly believe that you know better. You honestly believe that what you think is right is right. And this is where you need to talk to your guide. Because this is a great thing. Can an opinion ever be true? Ask yourself that. It's a great question to meditate over, and finding out, can an opinion ever be true? So the selfing is also about judging. Every single judgment that you make, you put yourself in the middle. The selfing is here in the middle. The ego is here in the middle. And then you judge what is, compare it to what you assume is going to happen. You judge what other people are doing, if that's right or not right. You know what is right. They clearly do not know what is right. And you only take it as your assumption, and your thought process is the only real thing in the world. Everybody knows that. Miss Smith, she clearly doesn't know that. Miss Smith, she's wrong. That is selfing. That is very ego behavior. It's also where you have beliefs. So what I'm sitting and talking about right now, that can be interpreted as a belief. And if you take the Fetter work on you, and you do the Fetter work, then you need to be careful about if you are just switching out concepts, if you're just replacing one concept with another concept. It's the concept of beliefs is it's so slippy. It's really, really slippy. It's very, very, very difficult to get a hold of. And it's also why I keep saying that the way that I do the Fetter work is just the way that I do the Fetter work. It's not the right way. It can't be. The dissolving of beliefs, it's a really big one. I'm going to get back to it when you get to the 9th Fetter. You need to be through all the other fetters, get to the 9th Fetter, and then we're going to dissolve that one. But it's great to become aware of it right now, here in the 1st Fetter. And it is what I said, it's working with the hermeneutical cycles. It's working with 1 step forward and 2 steps back. So the leading and the trailing edge. You have a ship, and you have the leading edge of a ship, and you have the trailing edge of the ship. So the leading edge is always a bit further than where you are actually at. I just see it as that wonderful wave that everything in nature is working with. I mean, you have it with seasons that is happening. You have it with the tide that is happening because of the rotation of the tilt of the earth. Then we have all those things, and it's happening, in that wave. And you're going to experience that it's the same with you, that you go in and out of that experience. The pure experience in reality is feeling and experiencing what is, and nothing else. Nothing else. Everything else that is added is done by mind. It's not what is experienced. It's not the sensory experience. It is added by mind. So the process of becoming awake is realizing that there are two types of reality. There's the reality where you experience something and you have a lot of identifying happening about what is happening, what you are experiencing. There's a lot of assumption and a lot of guessing, a lot of judgment, a lot of things happening, and then you think whether it's good or whether it's bad. All that is one reality. All that is what I call fantasy. And then you have reality. And reality is what is. That's it. And all the Fetter work is about realizing that. All the Fetter work is about that. So all the Fetter work is concepts. Is concepts leading you to a deeper insight about what actually is, what reality actually is. It's just helping you to kind of turn on the kaleidoscope to figure out what really is, to see things from a different angle. And you will experience that when we move to another Fetter, that you have, oh my goodness, I have already thought about that. Or when you are in a Fetter, that you will realize with your guide that what you're realizing right now, it's actually placed in a different Fetter. It's because it's only concepts. It's only to have some kind of navigation system to working in a way that is leading you and putting awareness to the different aspects. But it is just concepts. You can for a while take the concept of the Fetter and put it into the place and into the beliefs that you have of something else right now. That you might have a belief of, I don't know, psychotherapy working, and that's your belief, and that's a hill you would like to die on, Then you can take the Fetter model and replace it with another belief. It is just a belief that is being replaced. And it is just one concept being exchanged with another concept. At some point, when you get to the 9th Fetter, you're realizing that there are no concepts. In reality, there's no concepts. But it's just to help you to have kind of a direction, or having a system that is triggering all the things that you haven't looked at yet. I meet a lot of people that say that you don't need to do Fetter work. A lot of people do not acknowledge Fetter work. They say that it's not needed at all. As soon as you have understood that all of it is identifying with a separate self, and when you have understood that, you've understood all of it. And I completely agree. That is absolutely true. It's not my experience, though. It's not my experience. It's not my experience that people, some people can listen to Jim Newman or Parsons or what's it called, Nothing Media, or any of those. Some people can listen to that and go, oh my God, there we have it. And then they understand it, everything falls away. My experience is that the majority of people still have craving for foods. They still have a belief that there's something bigger than me. The universe has my back, or God has my back. There's still beliefs, still doubt before going into an interview. Those things are still happening. And if that is happening, then there's still work to do. Because when you come to the 10th Fetter and you realize your ignorance, realize that you are ignorant, period. You are. Of course you are. And of course we are. And we will always be. Understanding that, there's a lot of wisdom in that. Being in a position where you say, I have nothing left of any of the fetters, that is ignorance. That is ignorance. And I like the Fetter work, and I like the concept of the Fetter work, because it keeps questioning you. It keeps questioning your experience. It keeps questioning what is going on in your experience, and it keeps questioning the identifying that you have with an experience. And I think that is super valuable. When you start now with the first fetter, you can do the first 3 fetters on your own. Or, you can do it. I wouldn't recommend it. I would like for you to start to see that you're not in this alone. Because part of the thing of wanting to do things on your own, that is a part of identification. You're identifying with something that you would prefer to do it alone. And as you might know, I'm Asperger's, and we have this strong urge to do things on our own. I did all the 10 fetters on my own. I wouldn't recommend anybody to do that. Even if you're Asperger's, I wouldn't recommend you to do this, because there's a lot of things which you cannot realize on your own. Whatever you see or whatever you experience, it is always within your experience. You're always limited by your experience. And whatever you understand about your experiences is always have a starting point in previous experiences. When you are in a group, or when you are with a guide, then they have a different starting point than you, which means that another person's starting point will give you a completely different experience, completely different insights that you would never have realized and reached on your own. And when I am so arrogant to sit and say that I did the Fetter work on my own, it's not true, actually, because I have had groups since 2004. And for every single group I have had, I have realized things about myself. I realize a lot by creating the material for this, which means that I'm not doing it on my own. I'm doing it with the help of other people. And in that sense, even though I was the teacher and they were the pupils or the clients or the patients, then I realized a lot of things in the interaction. And that interaction is so important in your process. So even though you can do it alone, and if you are sitting on a desert island and you're the only one there, then find a coconut to talk to, or a volleyball to talk to. You need to say the words out loud. You need to hear your thoughts. And it's a great idea, it's a great practice to start doing right now, that whatever you think, you say out loud. Because the first thing you're going to realize is that a lot of the things you're thinking are bizarre, really, really bizarre. And when you hear it out loud, you can see how bizarre they are. The other thing you're going to realize is that the majority of your thoughts are repetitions. It's not new original thoughts that you have. The majority of thoughts you have is something you have thought before. And it might even be something that you thought 2 minutes ago. You experience that a lot when you're trying to remember your shopping list, when you're going grocery shopping and you try to remember all the things you need to buy. As soon as you write it down, you realize, oh my goodness, it wasn't 28 different items that I need to buy for my fridge. It was 3. But because you kept thinking about the same thing over and over and over. So I can advise you to start thinking out loud. So you really hear how bizarre it is, but also so you hear how many assumptions are tied into the thoughts that you have. Because there's a lot of thoughts that we have that are not based in reality at all. A lot of our thoughts has the foundation in the selfing, in the I am in the middle and I assume what is happening around me. I assume what is going to happen. A lot of our thoughts is about preparing ourselves for something that is going to happen, expectations that something is going bad, or expectations about something we want to go good, happen in a certain way. So we are selfing and believing something is out of ourselves, and in that expecting something else to happen, we're also tying ourselves into time. And time is I'm getting back to time when it comes to the seventh fetter. I just want to air it a little bit now here in the first fetter, that you start to notice how much of the selfing is happening in the future or in the past. So it's about expectations of the future, or it's about regrets of the past. The selfing is rarely happening right now. Reality is happening right now. Selfing is the other, everywhere else than now. And it's because the ego likes to be in control of what you're thinking. And one of the ways that the ego likes to control you is with fear. It's with making out that you didn't do it well enough, you need to do it better, because it keeps you on the toes. The ego is all about entertainment. The ego wants to be entertained. It's why you're scrolling on your phone. It's why you're flicking on Netflix. It's why you create issues with your friends, with your loved ones. It's why you poke to the hornet's nest, It's because the ego enjoys being entertained. And you will find that a lot of issues in your life was self-created. I know you don't want to hear that right now, but it was. You had the ego in the middle, the selfing in the middle, something else or somebody else around you, and you kept reacting to the assumption of what the others were doing. So you assumed why they did like they did, and then you reacted to your assumption. You didn't react to what actually happened. You reacted to your assumption of what happened. And you create those assumptions. The ego creates those assumptions because it's super, super fragile. The ego is so fragile. It's very, very scared of dying, very scared of being dissolved. And as soon as you realize that there is no I, there is no ego, there is no selfing, that just is, in that moment the ego is dissolving, and it will do everything in its power to get back in the main seat, in the center of attention. It's going to do everything for that to happen. So the process about becoming awake is becoming aware of when identification is happening. And I have made a lot of videos where I talk about identification, where I talk about non-identification, where I talk about the ego and about the authentic. And I can really recommend you to take a look at those, because they're teaching you to look at where is the I, where is the one selfing. Is there, or can there ever be any kind of selfing happening? Or are those just assumptions? You move your awareness from a predominant thinking where you completely rely on selfing and on all the ego creations. And then you stay present in the moment. You move away from the ego, away from the selfing, into reality, into being present in the moment, and where you are no longer adding any assumptions, you're no longer adding any expectations, any judgment, or any beliefs or conclusions or reckoning, guessing or hunches, anything, any speculations, not anything. You're just here, right now, in the moment, right now, experiencing what is right now. That is awakening. And in that, you dissolve the someone believing itself to exist. You dissolve the assumption of the ego. You dissolve the selfing. And what I would like for you to become aware of after this lesson is ask yourself, where is the I? I experience right now that a lot of selfing is happening. Where is the selfing? Where's that located? Where is that? Where is the ego being egotistical right now? Where is that? And you will find it's nowhere. It's not there. It is thoughts about thoughts happening. And thoughts are just thoughts. The thinker is just thoughts. The ego is just thoughts. The selfing is just thoughts. So what is actually there right now? What is actually happening right now? If all the things you assume is happening is not happening, then what is actually happening right now? To find out what is actually happening and what is actually alive and to feel into reality, we use something called inquiry, where we look into what is really happening. That is called inquiry. We also use direct pointing, which is more or less the same. It's where you have like one beacon, one thing that you are looking at, that particular one thing. What is that? And then you will find out that it's like peeling an onion. There are so many layers that are coming up to the surface, so many layers that you are becoming aware of, that is displaying itself and that is moving you, turning on the kaleidoscope. So the picture is becoming slightly different and new things pop up, new things display themselves, and makes you realize that, oh my goodness, I just realized that there is no I, there is no self, there is no ego. It's just assumptions, all of it. And right now I'm sitting and believing that I am having an experience. So there was a selfing on the selfing. But that is what is becoming awake is all about, is being always aware of what is happening, always aware of what is reality right now, always aware of when you are selfing, that you're selfing and pulling yourself out of the selfing into the actual reality and the actual experience right now. And we use inquiry to that. It's to look at what really is and not what you assume is. Whenever you want to use inquiry, whenever you want to use direct pointing, the first thing you need to do is feel into reality. Feel into reality. What is really here right now? You can make contact with your feet, or you can put a hand on your heart, on your heart, and really feel what is here right now. Where am I right now? Then you dissolve that. The I am, you dissolve that. So it's just being. There's just being, just being, just being, just being. Nothing else. And then now that you are looking into, that is happening now, and now, and now. And whatever now you look into, as soon as you look into it, it's past, which means that it dissolves right away and a new now happens. If you would like to meditate and get a closer experience about the now, the exchange of the now, then I enjoy doing the mindfulness of breathing, where you have a focus on your exhalation, where you, with every exhalation you do, you relax and you relax and you relax, and you realize that every single exhalation that you do is different than the previous one. And while you're doing the exhalation, it becomes into the past while you're doing it. And once you think that now you really got it, you twist it, you turn it around, and then you focus on your inhalation. And you have the feeling the first time that you do it that you're starting all over again, because it's such a different experience with inhalation as it is with exhalation. The same thing is going to happen, that you inhale and you realize that the experience of the inhalation is almost in the past before you realize it. You become very aware of what a now actually is. When I start to say the word now, it's always in the past when I start saying it, because the now, it's so fleeting. Reality is happening so fleeting, and once you have done that a couple of hundred times, then you realize that there is no time. There's that time is only a concept. But we get to that when we come to the seventh fetter. A big misconception about non-duality and about Fetter work is that you have to give up logic. It's exactly the opposite. As you know, I'm Asperger's and I'm very logical. Things only make sense to me when they're logical. It's also why I can be very persistent in a conversation, because I do not understand what is happening. It's illogical what is happening. And then I'm very persistent in it. And in my job in that is then to realize that right now I'm identifying with somebody that needs to understand. Logic is the insight to what is reality. And if you really think of it, that thinking and creating an assumed reality, that's a fantasy. That's a fantasy. And then reacting to that assumed reality, that has nothing to do with logic. That is so illogical. That's got nothing to do with logic. Logic is seeing what actually is and being with what actually is. That's logic. And you're going to find that when you start to attend groups, I can really recommend you to attend. Vince, he has a Sunday group. I can really recommend you to attend. It's really good for the first 3 fetters, most definitely. And also being guided, if you haven't got a guide yet, finding a guide in that group or being guided while you are in the group, it's really, really good. What you're going to find in the group is that there's so many logical thinking people in there because they're just with what is. You know, reality is what is. There's no I am anymore. There's just being. So nobody is identifying with anything or anyone. There's just being. And being in a group like that, where you can ask all the questions that you have, and you can see how those people that are no longer identifying, that do no longer believe that there is a separate self, when you see how they respond, it really helps you, because we're all connected, because it is oneness, because their realizations are your realizations. So I can warmly recommend you to attend a group where this is happening. All assumptions that you have, do you see now that they're created in fantasy? All expectations that you have, do you see now that it's all fantasy? All judgment that you have, it's fantasy. It cannot be anything but fantasy. It is only that, nothing else. There's nothing more to it. It is selfing happening. When you believe that you're right, they're wrong, do you see that you're deluding yourself? There is no one being right or no one being wrong. That just reality is what is, nothing else. Every thought that you have about something is selfing happening. And you're reacting to yourself. So the self is reacting to yourself. That is what I call the post-it. You have a thought in the self, and the self is putting another post-it on the post-it. All that is happening in your mind, and it's not real. It's not real. You are the only one on the planet experiencing that. It's only for you. It's an entertainment show made by you, for you, and that's it. There's nothing real about it. You can't even find the one selfing, because there is no one. It is thoughts about thoughts. That's it. There's nothing else about it. There is no you having any thoughts. Ask yourself the question, how is it logic to have a thought and assume it to be real, and then if you remove the thought, something else is completely real? You know? How can we call that logic? That is the most illogical thing on the planet, where being with what actually is, that's logical. That makes sense. So I want you to feel into reality right now. Take a deep breath. I want you to be present right now. Feel what is alive right now. And then look into, can you catch yourself when you're lost into thought? Can you pull yourself out of the fantasy of thinking and put your awareness into your senses? What do you smell right now? What do you hear? Can you stay in the senses without creating a thought about what you smell or what you hear? So whenever you catch yourself in thoughts, can you pull yourself out? Take the selfing out when you catch yourself. I would like for you to smile. And there are 2 reasons why I would like for you to smile. Because you smile, you release endorphins, and then you have a nice feeling with catching yourself, which means that you're more likely to do it again. So whenever you catch yourself being cut off in traffic and you think, "Arr," right away, and you discover that you are aggravated, smile. I know that Vinci sometimes say that you should laugh out loud, even though it's a fake laughter. Because when you do that, the same thing is happening. You're releasing endorphins. So either do what Vince is suggesting and laugh out loud, or you just smile. It's the same thing that is happening. Whatever works for you. By now you're also beginning to realize that the majority of thoughts that you have, they have no value whatsoever. They have no purpose at all. They're just there. Every single thought that you have is about something. And what it is about usually has no value whatsoever. The value is created by the ego, and the value is created by the selfing. In itself, in reality, it has no value whatsoever. It only has the value that you just added to it. In reality, the majority of your thoughts have no value or no purpose at all. So non-self does not mean that there won't be any thoughts anymore. It just means that you're no longer identifying with the thoughts. Thoughts are happening just like seeing is happening, smells are happening, sounds are happening, and you are seeing, smelling, and hearing, and that is just happening. There's nothing added to it. It is just happening. Thoughts are happening, but you don't put any value to it. There are lots of similes where with like you have a lawn and you have clouds passing, and the clouds, they cast a shadow onto the lawn, but they're not leaving any marks on the lawn. They're just casting a shadow. And it's the same with your thoughts. The thoughts are like clouds. They're just coming and going. And if you don't put any emphasis on them and you don't give them any value whatsoever, they're just coming and going. They're leaving again. You don't need to do anything specific about them, just like you smell something and then you don't smell it, or you hear something and then you don't hear it. You think something and then you don't think it. The selfing is happening when you believe there's an I, and you put that I in the center of the experience. You put that I in the center of attention, then it starts to leave a mark. But until you do that, there's nothing leaving a mark at all. It's just coming and going. So use inquiry and use curiosity and use awareness to look at the thoughts as any other sensory information. So whatever you're hearing, notice that you're just hearing. Hearing is happening. And the same with thoughts. Whatever you're thinking, thinking is happening. There's not an I or a selfing or an ego thinking or having a thought. It's just thinking. Thinking is happening. I like to use the analogy of when you're in the ego, when you're in the selfing, you are in the center of attention. You are in the maze. So imagine you standing in a maze and you're completely locked into the maze. And now you're trying to find your way out of the maze. Obviously, you can't do that. You run around in circles. What you need to do is to pull yourself up, seeing from the 5th floor where you look down on the maze. And that is what you do with curiosity. Inquiry and curiosity is pulling you away from the situation and looking at the situation where you're no longer identifying with it. You're looking at it, and then you can see what is actually happening. You can find yourself out of the maze when you look at it with curiosity and with inquiry. So thoughts are just as important as noticing a smell or noticing a taste or noticing anything you see. They're just as relevant as that. Nothing else. And there's no one thinking. I hope you understand that now, that you really see that now. There's no one thinking. There's just thinking happening. So I want you to feel into reality right now. When you start to become aware of those thoughts that is happening. Then follow them with an inquiry. Look into who is the I? Where's that I placed? Is it based on thoughts about yourself? Are any of those thoughts true? Can they be true? Is an opinion ever true? Can an opinion ever be true? How much do you assume right now? In this situation that you're in right now, if you think of the biggest hurdle that you have in your life right now, how much of that is reality and how much is assumption? How much do you assume about that thing right now? How much is actually true? How much is the ego selfing about that thing? And how much is actually true? And how do you know the difference? How do you know the difference of what is ego selfing assuming and what is truth in reality? How do you know the difference? In your experience, how do you know the difference? The awareness I would like for you to have from this lesson is feel into reality. Whatever situation you are in, feel into reality. Ask yourself, what is actually happening? Is this ego selfing right now? Am I assuming right now? What is actually happening right now? Not in time, not in the future, not in the past, right now. What is actually happening? Ask yourself, who am I? It's a great exercise to meditate upon. To ask yourself, who am I? And meditate on that. See what comes up. Feel how the ego is selfing about who you are. How much of that is actually true? And how much is just assumptions happening? I would also like for you to notice when you're in fantasy and when you're in reality, how much of your everyday is spent in fantasy. And fantasy is everything that you assume about. How much is actually spent there? And how much is spent in reality, what really is. That is not tied into time. It's not tied into the future, not tied into the past. It's just what is right now. How much of your day is spent in fantasy and how much is spent in reality? All these things are questions that I would like for you to take up, either with a group or with your guide. And also notice, when is selfing happening? When is the ego selfing? Is there a special theme that you have? That when that happens, then you go into selfing. Then you assume an I, and then you're really locked into the assumption of an I. And then selfing is happening. You are in the middle. Something in the future is happening. Something in the past did happen. You are in the middle and you are selfing. When is that happening? What theme do you have in your life where that is happening a lot? Write it down. All the things that you're writing down, you don't need to sit and be clever about it. You don't need to censor it at all. Just write it down. Just write it down. Whatever comes up, just write it down. I would like for you to question if an opinion can ever be true. How do you know that an opinion is true? And can an opinion ever be true? I would like for you to question if you can keep your response only to what is said and not to what you think you hear is said. And I would also like for you to question, how do you know the difference? How do you know that there is a difference between what is said and what you think you hear is said? Listen to this lesson as many times as you need to. Do not be caught up in the thought that the first lesson is only for the first week. It's not. Don't be delusional. It's not. You are going to come back to this lesson and hear it over and over and over again. You can even create a group with friends where you're working with it and when you listen to it again and again and again. Just because that this is lesson 1 does not mean that it is lower with the content of anything else that you're going to hear in any other lessons from any of the other fetters. Don't be deluded. It's not like that. The information in this lesson is just as relevant when you're in the first fetter as when you are in the fifth fetter or in the eighth fetter or the 10th fetter. You can listen to this teaching as many times as you need to. Every single time you hear it, you're going to hear something else, and you're going to experience something really strange. You're going to experience that a lot of things you have never heard me say before. You have never ever, you might have listened to this recording 10 times, and the 10th time you listen to it, you hear me say something, and it's the first time you have ever heard me say that. You will swear that is how it is. It's because of how our brain is, that you can only understand on the level of your understanding. If you ask a 2-year-old, do you want an ice cream or do you want 100 pounds? The 2-year-old is going to ask for the ice cream. They don't know how many ice creams they can actually buy for 100 pounds. You haven't got the information to understand what I'm actually saying until you're at a different age, until you're at a different point in your understanding. Which means that you can listen to this recording over and over and over, and every single time you're going to hear something new. When you think you have heard all of it, when you might have made transcripts of all of it and you have made inquiries to every single thing, leave it, listen to it again in 6 months, and you will see. Because the development you have made in that period will lead you to a point where when you listen to the recording, it's going to be completely different. So, and the last final thing I want to say is thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing this. I don't mean listening to me, and I don't mean doing Fetter work in this way, but thank you for doing Fetter work. Your effort in what you're doing, the ripple effect of what you're doing, it's massive. When you realize that there's no selfing happening, there's no separate I, you're going to find that you will be different in your life. The way that you view yourself and the way that you view other people is going to be completely different. The work that you do, it might feel like it's something very private and very local that is happening, but it's not. It's not. The ripple effects that you have with understanding that there are no enemies, that there's nobody against you at any point, and that you are not better than anyone. Nobody's better than you at any point. When you really realize that, the insight that you're going to have is having a global effect. So I really would like to thank you for doing this work. I really would like to thank you for doing Fetter work. Well done. I'm really happy about that. Thank you.